Welcome everybody. Delighted to be with you this morning. My name is George Day. I'm a Senior Policy Advisor at the Energy Systems Catapult, and it's my job today to shepherd you through a really great agenda with some fantastic speakers. So we're really looking forward to this webinar on the India-UK hydrogen landscape. And particularly opportunities for collaboration. So it's going to be a really packed agenda we've got over the next hour and a half with some great speakers. So just before we launch into all that, a little bit of housekeeping. So the webinar will be recorded and shared. The questions and answers will be removed from the recording to protect anonymity. But please do use the Q&A facility to post questions. And I understand that if you wish to post questions anonymously, you can do so by clicking on the settings icon next to your initials, and you have the opportunity to toggle the anonymous setting there if you wish to do that. Okay, we've got quite a number of speakers to get through, so we won't be doing very long introductions and reciting people's CVs, but take it from me that everybody here has got a really excellent CV, and we're really looking forward to hearing from them. We'll keep the introductions fairly brief. I'd also like to, just before I hand over to my colleague from Xynteo, Energy Systems Catapult and Xynteo have been putting this together in partnership, but just very briefly, the Energy Systems Catapult, if you haven't heard of us, we're a UK innovation promotion body. We have public and private sector funding, and we work with innovators, industry and academics across the whole smart clean energy space. We're delighted to be working in India on the ITES program, which is Innovating for Transport and Energy Systems, which is a UK-India partnership backed by both governments, and we're working in partnership with the Indian Institute of Science. And the aim of the ITES program is really to help innovators to engage across the two countries to design, test and collaborate on new innovations, particularly in the clean transportation space. So there's been a whole series of work that's been going on over the last couple of years, and a whole bunch of very exciting innovators working together, and the program aims to really help facilitate collaboration and innovation between these two very important countries in this clean transportation space. We also form part of a wider program which our speakers from the British High Commission will tell you a little bit more about. That's enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Ashay to introduce the Xynteo Energy Leap program.
Thank you, George, and welcome to everyone. Let me introduce first Xynteo very quickly, and then Energy Leap. At Xynteo, we work with some of the largest corporates in the world on problems that are too big to solve by one organization or even few organizations. So we generally create system-wide collaborations to solve these problems. And that is how we have conceptualized Energy Leap. Before I introduce Energy Leap to you, let me provide a brief context around why we have developed this program, which is a green hydrogen technology accelerator. When we did our research on what is needed to accelerate green hydrogen production and adoption in India, we identified that commercialization of technologies developed indigenously, which is cost effective and reliable, is one of the key levers to accelerate production and adoption of green hydrogen value chain, and that through collaboration, of course, with other countries. Uh, so there are four support areas that we have identified that are really needed to accelerate technology development, and they are at different readiness of technology. There are different support which is required at the R&D level. What support is really needed is a channel to identify industry relevant problem statements and also industry guidance during research, so that the research is market need driven. Once the uh, research has been done and early proof of concept is established, then there is a support need of grant and seed capital for initial prototype development. And once the prototype is developed, then there is a support need of a trustworthy platform which could enable mutual discovery of the technology developers and also the industrial end users, so that the proof of concept and industrial scale can be established. And post that, when the startups can now scale up, what is needed at that phase is mentorship, how to go from, let's say, 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, and also support in business planning, fundraising, establishing supply chain, etc. So basis that, what we have identified, that there is an immediate need for ecosystem-wide collaboration uh, within the country, but also with other geographies to develop cost-effective, safe, and reliable technologies. Yeah, next. Um, So what we have done in the last 1 year, we have onboarded 8 ecosystem partners who could support the uh, technology development by innovators in India. And we have onboarded 6 startups. 4 of them are at our incubator platform, where we are providing grant support to them for prototype development, and 2 of them are on our accelerator platform, where we are supporting them with market access, fundraise, etc. We have also established collaboration opportunity between startups and uh, the R&D institutes and academia to develop technology. And we have also created pilot opportunities with industries for these startups. We also provided them with a platform for showcasing their technology and innovation at Xynteo Exchange event, which was where 250 plus leaders from industry, academia, government, and finance sort of we showcase the innovation to them, and some of those conversations have resulted into deeper conversations for pilot as well. Going forward, we will also provide them additional support such as mentorship support, support in getting in patent and IP through our partners, advisory support to scale up, support in establishing digital systems, etc. So who are these startups? I would quickly sort of give you sort of quick overview of these startups. It is our startups on our platform are at the clean hydrogen production as well as in consumption part of the value chain. Mateen from Grassroots is developing technology for agri-waste to production of clean hydrogen. Sulyam is using solid biomass as a feedstock to produce clean hydrogen. Tulika from SunGreen, SunGreen is based in Singapore, is doing innovation in AEM electrolyzer space. And Suruchi from Oasis Biorenewables have already proven technology to convert industrial effluent to clean hydrogen, and we're supporting them with doing sort of scaling up their venture. On the consumption side, Satyajit from Hydroworld is developing stationary power generator using fuel cells, and Pankaj Kumar from Prasa has designed indigenous fuel cell in India and is now setting up manufacturing for the use case of aerial drone. We have also supported by some of the senior leaders from our partner network, and we really thank Set Fund, Technip, Rich, Energy Systems Catapult, Ankur Capital, AWS, Cambridge Cleantech, and Transition VC for their continued support. So with that, this was sort of a brief overview of Energy Leap program that we at Xynteo are running. We really request you to post the webinar to speak with us. We would like to speak with you and understand how we could collaborate on accelerating technology development for green hydrogen production requirement in India and also for the world. Thanks a lot, and over to you, George.
Thanks very much, Ashay. That's brilliant. I'm just going to hand straight over to our two brilliant speakers from the British High Commission, Jack Landers, who's the First Secretary for Science, Climate, Space and People, and Dr. Patricia Pinto, who's a Senior Science and Innovation Advisor. So over to you guys. Thank you.
Hi all, thanks for that. Yeah, really good to be here. So my name's Jack Landers. I lead the science element of everything that we do at the British High Commission in New Delhi, but also across our network through India. So to start off by giving a bit of an intro on what the SIN network is, the Science and Innovation and Technology Network is basically a global network which the British government have across all of our missions, from high commissions to embassies to the deputy high commissions that we have across India. And India is our biggest network. So we have tech and science experts across the globe and across India sort of working for us. But it's great to be here because a big part of that is the Net Zero Centre. And within the Net Zero Centre, we have our hydrogen hub. So before I get into the details, I just think, so this week is World Hydrogen Summit 2024, which seems like a pretty good time for Energy Systems Catapult to be kicking off this agenda. And thanks to Xynteo as well for sort of putting this together. So the ITES initiative that we're talking about today is part of a bigger scheme. It's part of something that many of you hopefully have heard of, the UK-India roadmap, 2030 roadmap. So in May 2021, the UK and Indian Prime Ministers made a historic agreement committing our two countries to some huge milestones, some huge ambition before 2030. So this brings our countries closer together than they ever have been before. And a big segment of that is through low cost climate technologies, clean energy, clean transport, e-mobility, industrial decarbonisation, etc. So it's a huge swathe of different projects that we're working on together before 2030. Within that, it's about deepening our partnership on green hydrogen, so promoting knowledge exchange, policy and regulatory cooperation, research and innovation, which we're particularly interested in. We agreed to strengthen this through secure, affordable, sustainable supplies of energy as kind of the jointly shared priorities between our government and the Indian government. And there's numerous sort of ways we do this, numerous projects. It isn't just green hydrogen, it's also CCUS, carbon capture, usage and storage, industrial carbonisation, energy storage sectors, including battery modifications, etc. It's about integrating this well into the market, giving small, medium enterprises the right sort of footing that they need into this competitive landscape. And really, as SIN, we work on two parallels. So we have big government-to-government collaborations where we're negotiating with the government of India, and government of India are meeting with us and sharing their ambition, and together coming up with a formula for how we work together. And then at a sort of smaller, more agile, but equally as sort of important and inspiring level, we also incentivize research and small programs of anywhere between sort of, you know, 10 to 100,000 pounds, grants and other such initiatives which help small companies get off the ground into the hydrogen market and boosting their capabilities both in India and in the UK. So going through the timescale a little bit more recently, in April 2022, the Prime Ministers had another moment in which they kind of met and reassigned their commitment to the UK-India Climate and Innovation Partnership on green hydrogen and our joint work on the Green Hydrogen Hub. So the Green Hydrogen Hub includes over 200 companies, research institutes and bodies which fall within our Net Zero Centre. So my colleague, Dr. Patricia Pinto, will be talking about that later on. The other two pillars are decarbonising the pharmaceutical industry, and then the final pillar is ITES. So decarbonising the pharmaceutical industry is led by the UK's Science for Process Innovation, CPI, with India's National Chemical Laboratory, NCL, based in Pune. So the concept is to create a living lab in India to demonstrate technologies for sustainable continuous pharmaceutical manufacturing this year. And then moving on to the main point of this discussion, I would say, is the ITES program. So something that is a real spearhead of the program, decarbonising transport, led by ESC, Energy Systems Catapult, in partnership with the Indian Institute of Science, IISC. So these are, this Net Zero Centre is a flagship part of the collaboration that we make at that bigger, more government to government scale. And I'll finish by saying the sort of the way this feeds up into the higher elements of our work is through something that you may have heard of, the UK India Ministerial Science and Innovation Council, the SIC, the SIC. So that is where we agree our priorities for the coming years. That all feeds down into the work that we do at this level that we're talking about now. But it's great to be here. I think it's really good that we're having this discussion about hydrogen. As we know, it is the future, both in the UK and in India. There's so much opportunity, it's hard to know where to start. But I think we've made a brilliant first step with the Net Zero Centre, and I'm very excited to see how it grows. Of course, that is only one part of the puzzle. But I look forward to listening to other speakers later today on the more in-depth analysis of where we are with hydrogen in both of our two great countries. But for now, to dig a little bit deeper into the Net Zero Centre and into the Hydrogen Hub, I will pass over to my colleague, Patricia Pinto. Over to you, Pat.
Thanks so much, Jack, and welcome everyone. It's so great to see so many of you here today. As you've just heard, the British High Commission in India leads on delivering the hydrogen partnerships pillar of the Net Zero Centre. So the UK Science and Innovation Network has developed a platform called the UK-India Hydrogen Hub. This is a coalition of over 200 UK and India research groups and innovators to drive science and innovation, accelerate and enhance the role of hydrogen in the UK and India's decarbonization journey. So we know both countries have agreed to work together to scale up pilots, share knowledge, best practices and policies, co-develop standards that meet international needs, and patent framework that augments innovation. So we've done a number of things as part of launching this hub. For one, we've launched the Tata Steel Sprint to Zero, a funding call that will support innovative low-carbon hydrogen projects to address the challenges of greening the industrial sector in India. We've facilitated a project on decentralized solar hydrogen for rural India that was funded by the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, led by Brunel University London in collaboration with Arctic Renewables and Energy Efficiency Limited and the Institute of Rural Management in India until March 24. The first workshop on current and post-carbon renewable energy systems for rural India was held in Jan at the Anand campus in Gujarat, India. And the second workshop on energy efficiency and green hydrogen for rural India of 2070 and beyond was held in March 24 at Utkal University, Bhubaneswar, Orissa, India. With over 50 attendees, speakers from diverse backgrounds, including academic scientists, researchers, government committee members, UN experts, industry professionals, not-for-profit, community-based organizations, and end users. So we've had a busy couple of months. We've also participated in the UK-India bilateral policy exchange on green hydrogen that was led by the Royal Academy of Engineering with the Indian National Academy of Engineering in Jan. And we were hosted again at the CSR NCL campus in Pune. And over the week from the 29th of Jan to 3rd Feb, the Royal Academy's International Partnerships Programs team brought a delegation of about 12 to 15 UK experts to Pune, India, for a seminar meeting and site visits to NCL, ARAI, KPIT, NPRO, H2E Power in Pune, India. We also had colleagues from the UK Department for Energy Security and Net Zero who were part of this delegation and who interacted with British High Commission colleagues around the network to discuss the UK hydrogen strategy that week. We then celebrated impactful UK-India engineering partnerships and advancements in the green energy transition with the Royal Academy of Engineering at a reception at the High Commissioner's residence and a workshop in New Delhi in Feb this year. So the two-day workshop brought together up to 20 awardees from the last 5 years, in addition to a new cohort of 11 recently selected grant awardees, with projects focused on affordable healthcare and clean energy, including hydrogen. We are currently working closely with UK and Indian partners to explore research and innovation partnership pilots on topics like hydrogen trains and heavy transport such as trucks and buses, which is very much linked with the ITES goals on decarbonizing transport as well. So we know that the UK-India collaboration has higher impact than that of just the UK or India alone. And that data has shown that UK-India collaboration has increased by over 60% between 2019 to 22, which is far more than any other research producer. So with that, I'd like to say I look forward to hearing more about the UK-India hydrogen landscape today and how we can take forward further opportunities for collaboration. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, guys. Any questions on that, please put them in the chat and we'll try and pick them up later. Over to Varun now for the next session on the Indian policy, regulatory and technology landscape. I'll leave it to you, Varun.
Thanks, George. Very exciting to hear some of the great work happening from the British High Commission. So we're going to talk about, as George mentioned, on the policy on the Indian side of things, on the regulation, technology, and financing. And again, it's a truly exciting time in the green hydrogen sector here. India has already set an ambitious target to produce 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030, and that would require significant amounts of investments, close to 8 lakh crore or $100+ billion. So we are having an ambitious target, and then there is a target to also be sort of self-reliant or Atmanirbharta. So with these two goals, we would like to, over next 15 to 20 minutes, cover these aspects. And we have esteemed speakers from joining us today, Dr. Arvind Kumar and Dr. Deepak Yadav. Hope they're able to hear me. Yeah, great. So Dr. Arvind is a associate professor at the Indian Institute of Technology in Madras. He's from the Department of Chemical Engineering, and he also heads the Tamil Nadu Hydrogen Innovation Hub, which is actively collaborating with top corporates, MSMEs, and startups in the region to set up a green hydrogen ecosystem in Tamil Nadu. And Dr. Deepak Yadav is a program lead at Council on Energy, Environment, and Water, and specializes in developing decarbonization roadmaps for hard-to-abate sectors, and has contributed insights to a lot of policy making in the decarbonization space, especially in the hard-to-abate sector. So very excited to have both the speakers, and I think let's deep dive into what's happening. And by the way, I'm Varun Desai from Xynteo, and I'll be moderating the session over the next few minutes. So starting with Dr. Arvind. So Dr. Arvind, as you're leading the Tamil Nadu Hydrogen Innovation Hub, sort of you very well understand that involving startups, MSMEs, and large entities in driving green hydrogen innovation is critical. So given this global push towards green hydrogen solutions, encompassing electrolyzers, balance of plant, storage system, and fuel cell, how critical do you believe it is to actively involve MSMEs and startups in this endeavor? And based on your experience, what strategies has been proven effective in integrating these smaller but innovative players in the overall development and deployment of green hydrogen technologies? So,
Great. Thanks, Varun. Varun, could you hear me? Am I audible
Yes.
and clear? Okay, fantastic. Thanks.
Great. Yeah.
Thanks so much. So Varun, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks to Catapult and Xynteo for organizing this excellent session. So coming straight to the answer, what I feel India is doing and what India is planning to do is really towards this whole decarbonization business is really excellent. So one thing is how to do this, the transition very quickly. As you rightly pointed out, MSME sectors have to be there. The reason behind the involvement of MSME is that they're very good at manufacturing. For example, like we need like several gigawatts of electrolyzer that has to be manufactured and that has to be deployed for the green hydrogen generation. If that has to happen, we don't have enough time to really create a new set of industries. And we don't have enough time to really start from the scratch and then start running the whole game. That's where the MSMEs come into the play. Indian MSME ecosystem is very well equipped today for the automobile ecosystem, for example, because almost all the components, like really like almost more than 70 to 80% of component today that goes into the vehicles are being made by the MSMEs for the top automobile OEMs. Now, when the vehicle manufacturers, for example, move out from this conventional ICE which uses petrol or diesel to the electric or hydrogen-based ones, automatically MSMEs have to switch the role. Now, this is the transition period. They don't have to just switch just to the vehicle segment. But then, for example, there are many companies which are good at coating, many companies which are good at making sealants. Now, can we strategically move all those MSMEs into this hydrogen manufacturing ecosystem? And this is going to, because they have all the expertise. It's just about the experts who have the bigger picture of the entire hydrogen ecosystem have to come together and just advise them, like, this is the design and this is the system that we want to build. Then they will be able to take it forward and build the best products because their products have been proven very useful. And I also wanted to just touch upon the startup topic that you mentioned, Varun. The entire like Indian ecosystem or the economy, like back in the early 2000s or late 1990s, started with the whole software business. And as the energy ecosystem is like literally sitting on a digital platform. And one is MSME really have to be utilized properly because they are good at manufacturing. Next is the software base that we have in India. And I think we cannot just all of a sudden axe all of them and then say move to something else. Now, can we repurpose the entire software or reappropriate their expertise to the digital platform that the energy innovators require? And this is where a lot of startups who work on software building now has to come into the play and then enable this transition much faster. I stop here, Varun. I'll look into the next questions.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dr. Arvind. I think that is very insightful. I think picking on that topic, coming to Deepak, as evident, like there are multiple stakeholders involved that needs to come together, and both on the demand side, where they need to start using green hydrogen, but also on the supply side, where we need to make sure these MSMEs, these startups, and also the larger players come together to make the technology and also to manufacture the actual electrolyzers and products to make it happen. So it would be great to hear from you on how, say, the energy policy in India is addressing these gaps. We know the National Green Hydrogen Mission that has been announced a couple of years ago, but wanted to find out what is happening and what more needs to be done in order to further accelerate this transition.
Yeah, thanks, Varun, and thanks, Xynteo, for inviting me to this, very good webinar that we are having here. So if you look at, the National Green Hydrogen Mission, India has approached hydrogen in a very strategic way, right? So firstly, if you look at, so we at CW, we are very fortunate to work with MNRE on developing the RD&D roadmap for green hydrogen. And, we've actually led a working group on hydrogen transportation there. And if you look at the way the RD&D roadmap has been developed, there are various categories of projects that have been identified by MNRE, right? So there are projects that can be taken up in mission mode. There are projects that can be taken up in in a blue sky research mode, in several other modes, right? So what we sort of proposed first is how do we identify which kind of project goes where, right? And therefore we developed a framework where we basically had 4 categories, right? So the first category is what is the industry requirement. So for a particular technology, let's say electrolyzers, for example, is the industry requirement high or low? The answer is that the industry requirement is very high, right? What is the impact potential? If so with hydrogen, for example, is the impact potential low or high? Electrolyzers, very high impact potential. With something like, let's say, hydrogen trunk pipelines, the impact potential is less as of now, right? In the long term, the impact potential is high, but as of now, the impact potential is low. The third category is, what is the status quo, right? So where do we in India have the manufacturing capabilities of various components in electrolyzers, for example, in hydrogen storage units, for example, and then finally what is the outcome, right? So across these 4 categories, we sort of gave a framework to MNRE, and then we sort of help them identify how can we take up RD&D projects. So mission mode projects are basically those projects which have high industry requirement. They have very high potential. Electrolyzers capability in India is moderate. There are academic institutes that have been working on green hydrogen. Industry very little RD&D potential, but the status quo is also low, right? So in case of electrolyzers, for example, there are hardly any OEMs in India. At least there were hardly any OEMs 2 years ago, right? That is how mission mode projects are identified. Mission mode projects are those that have to be developed in 2 years or 3 years with strict timelines. So that's the first thing public policy has taken up. Secondly, what MNRE has also done is they have developed a PLI scheme for electrolyzer manufacturing, right? And we have done a very detailed component level mapping of electrolyzers. And to our research, about 70% of the electrolyzer manufacturing cost can be already indigenous. And here I'm talking about MSME industries that manufacture hydrogen compressors or process heat components like heat exchangers, water purification systems, etc. They together constitute around 55 to 60% of the total hydrogen cost, the electrolyzer cost. And then additionally, certain other indigenization is possible if you have good coating facility, etc. Right? So 70% indigenization, which can we can have the big industrial boys manufacturing electrolyzers, but these components can be outsourced to MSME industries, right? So that's the first thing. And secondly, with certain more effort, you can indigenize up to 80 to 85%, Varun, right? So that indigenization has been again strategically sort of approached by MNRE, and finally there are MNRE is also sort of supporting certain startups, etc. through the RD&D program, Varun. So that is also something which the government is very much cognizant of.
Absolutely, Deepak. I think I echo your point in the sense that from the ground up, what we are seeing is a lot of these startups who have founders with a lot of experience in fuel cell or electrolyzer. They are trying to get deep into the indigenization curve as well. Going beyond the fuel cells or the electrolyzers, say compressors or other bipolar plates that goes into these fuel cells. Absolutely. I think that's a very, very crucial point. So coming to Dr. Arvind, so one of the sort of favorite topics that we have discussed before as well is when considering, say, hydrogen technologies, particularly those in very early stage development, such as components that goes into electrolyzers or BOP or development of biohydrogen technologies, there is a sort of a value of death phase that these technologies encounter, say from TRL3 to TRL7 technology readiness levels. So can you share your thoughts on how we can tackle these challenges? Because that is something which we are focusing on in terms of supporting our startups and MSMEs. So how can they navigate this value of death effectively, and what kind of market access can the industry stakeholders provide to these innovators, and what could be the funding strategy to sort of help them get through this phase and deploy pilots on the ground? So we'd love to hear your insights on that.
Yeah, thanks, Varun. So yeah, I think you've asked one of the most important questions. I think Deepak sir was also really touching upon those points. So one thing is that in the lab, there are a lot of innovations happening. The second thing is that what is that we need to translate from the low TRLs to the high TRLs. When you look at any document, they're all very ambitious. I mean, I'm going to be a bit brutal here, Varun. It's most of them are wish list. I'm kind of really tired of reading a lot of these documents. Either it is coming from the private agencies or government agencies. I would rather put it as a kind of strategic planning roadmap, or I will simply use the technology landscape and the roadmap. If we can really identify that for the country, I mean, I'm going to put forward the request to CEW. They have a lot of experience doing it. Xynteo is already doing it. Catapult is doing it. If we can have a roadmap for the country and identify, let's say, 5 most important areas or 5 most important components or devices which we want to really indigenize, that's going to work out. When you look at the R&D roadmap, I understand government wants to do a lot of things, but at the same time, do we have really enough expertise to do it? I did not talk about the funding yet, Varun. I'm talking mostly about what we want to really push from the low TRLs to the high TRLs. Any technology takes roughly 10 to 15 years to push from low TRLs to the high TRLs. First question is that, do we have that patience to do it? The answer is no, because we don't have the time to really switch over or wait for 10 years to do this transition for the hydrogen. So what we have to do is that there are some technologies that we have to really identify. There are some companies or some institutes in the country really try to develop the technology over years. We need to identify them and push them very early through this valley of death. Through government funding or through funding like I mean, thanks to Xynteo and the entire team which funded through the Energy Leap, some of the companies, like which is going to push it from a like pilot level to the next big pilots or into the market, right? This is where I feel we need to focus our efforts on, because not the entire country doesn't have enough bandwidth to really cover the entire hydrogen value chain. And our time is limited. When the rest of the world or some countries invested in this whole space for decades, and all of a sudden we come in and then we say, no, I want to do that in 5 years, 10 years. And Deepak sir mentioned about mission mode. They strategically put out only specific topics that are required. We need to really even focus further down. And I would say that convert the wish list to the roadmap with the quantifiable specifications identified for each of those technologies that you want to push it to the next level. Then industries will definitely have a very good belief or confidence in those proposals that we bring it out to the funding agencies. It is through Xynteo or a lot of other investors are there, or government agencies themselves, or even Indo-UK forum, whichever we go and approach. When we have that very targeted roadmap with quantifiable deliverables identified, that can be done in very short time, then automatically that valley of death will no more be a valley of death, that will be covered. It's not just, we always talk about, we have a lot of innovations at low TRLs. We have to push it. We blindly say that, but you say, what is that we want to push it through the valley of death to the next level? And just we have to accept the fact that today I cannot develop an ICE engine that burns hydrogen in like 2 years, 3 years down the line. It needs at least 10 years to develop that. And all of a sudden we cannot just put that as a strategic in our strategic planning and then say companies or academic institutes to develop that. Even if you put all our efforts and resource into it, it has its own time. The first product, then pilot testing, field testing, whatever it is until it comes to the market. So that would be my answer, Varun, to focus on technologies where we are already good at. I've said, like, use the MSME ecosystem, use the digital ecosystem. Let's push those guys further because they know what they're doing. All we have to say is that now you adapt to the hydrogen ecosystem, right? As simple as that.
Right.
Fund startups. I mean, fund companies, not just academic institutes. Fund these MSMEs, not just big companies. Fund these startups. who are already expert in their area, who really push the technology to some level. That is where we can push the technology to the next level in 3 to 5 years time.
Absolutely. Just to add on to that point, if you can share kind of in a minute or so, in terms of what industry can do in terms of getting these pilots on the ground or supporting these innovations that is coming out in terms of pilot, that would be also very insightful.
Yeah, sure, Varun. So industries, if they can put forward the requirements a bit more clearly, I'll put it this way as well, Varun. Put the requirements a bit more clearly. We also know how, I mean, for example, since I'm leading this Hydrogen Valley Innovation Program for the state of Tamil Nadu, and by the way, I'm sitting in the hydrogen microgrid. This building is all the common walkways, everything is taken off grid and it's running on hydrogen. I'm sitting in this microgrid building. So first thing is, industries have to really say, this is exactly what I want, rather than letting it like really, we go into the high entropy mode. And when there is a high entropy, we don't know where we have to decrease the entropy, which side. So essentially just industries can pinpoint. This is the thing, because industries have done a proper business models and find out which area is going to be commercially viable. Then if that area can be proposed to academics or even advise the startups to really focus on those areas or reroute their expertise to those areas, then I think we are in the game. And the partnerships between countries is one of the key in which we can enable these transitions happen, Varun.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if we want to just add one more question, say probably Deepak or maybe even Dr. Arvind, Dr. Deepak both can answer. Is that in terms of given this global momentum on green hydrogen, how do you see, say, India and UK leveraging their respective strengths, to collaborate in this space? Are there any specific areas or technologies that you think could be prioritized for collaboration, so that we have audience from the UK who's listening as well? So it will be something interesting for us to take it forward as well.
Maybe Deepak sir can go ahead, and then I finally probably.
Yeah. So I'll give a few bullet points on this one. So the one area of collaboration is on PEM electrolyzer development. So if you look at the winners of the PLI scheme, almost all of them are alkaline electrolyzer manufacturers, and we know what are the pros and cons of alkaline electrolyzers vis-a-vis PEM electrolyzers. So in UK there are OEMs that have expertise in developing PEM electrolyzers. That is something that we can collaborate on. I think Professor also mentioned about developing hydrogen-based combustion engines. So if you talk to mobility sector players, they'll say that they are actually working on hydrogen-based combustion engines rather than hydrogen-based fuel cells, because of certain technological issues. But there are companies in UK, and there have been demonstrations in India as well, where the concept of hydrogen combustion in internal combustion engines have been actually demonstrated, right? So that is, perhaps the second, area of work that India and UK can collaborate on. There are others as well. So in UK, for example, has experience in handling town gas, which consists of large amount of hydrogen, right? Where we have directly moved to natural gas. UK has moved from town gas to natural gas, right? So that is perhaps another area of collaboration. What we can immediately do in the short term is, and I'll take like 20 more seconds on this, is for the time being, it can be the UK technology, which they have their expertise there in technology development. We have expertise in manufacturing, right? So can we have a win-win situation where the technology know-how, etc., can be UK, but can the manufacturing happen in India? Because that way we can sort of export electrolyzers, not only consume them in India but also export electrolyzers and be very competitive in the exports market world.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Dr. Deepak. Dr. Arvind, do you have any thoughts on that?
I was going to resonate exactly what Dr. Deepak has mentioned about. If there are technologies that are available in UK now, let's use the manufacturing base. Let's use the digital platform or expertise that India has and try to push it as early as possible. At the end of the day, we are talking about the cost of hydrogen, and I'm sure when the cost of hydrogen goes down, both the countries are going to get benefited, and that's where I feel like there is no such thing called I work in silo, you work in silo kind of business. All of us understood that already. Now, what I strongly believe is that, and just going to emphasize the point that Dr. Deepak has mentioned, let's take the technology that's available. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel one more time. Rather, let's try to see how the technology can use the MSME and the manufacturing base in India, and try to digitalize that with the software and infrastructure that we have. If that can reduce the overall cost of hydrogen capex investments, whatever that we make, either it can be an electrolyzer, either it can be on the renewable space. I mean, always we talk about only the hydrogen ecosystem, but the renewable space is one of the biggest players. I think we need to really enhance our renewable infrastructure like quite a lot in order to reduce the cost of green hydrogen. And that's where I feel like we need to collaborate. And at the next level, in the slightly longer run, I talk about 5 to 10 years down the line, there are some areas which we might have developed. That's where I've said we need to come out with the roadmap. Rather than putting out an open question to academia or even to industries, because everyone will try to pull in all the directions in whichever they think or whatever we think is correct. Rather, I think some of the experts, whichever that makes a business sense, that say these are the technologies that has to be developed in the very short run. I'm talking about short run in the sense like 10 years. I mean, 10 looks very long, but 10 is an actual number. I think anything can be meaningfully done. And if that roadmap can help us really say, this is where the area. Now, we know whom we have to find in UK, or UK experts know whom they have to find in India, then collaborations can happen automatically in those areas. So it has to start from business, I feel, and then it has to go top down rather than the bottom up approach.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Dr. Deepak and Dr. Arvind. I think technologies doesn't have boundaries. That's the sort of a gist, right? Because you don't reinvent the wheel, but you work with your strengths and create a win-win situation. Again, I guess that's the time we had for this session. I hope it was insightful, and thank you both for joining and sharing your insights. I think now we'll hear some perspectives from our UK colleagues, and George will guide us through that discussion. George, over to you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Varun.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Varun. Thanks, guys. Really interesting to hear your perspectives on the potential for UK-India collaboration there. So yeah, we thought we've got a short session now on UK perspective on hydrogen. So we thought it'd be useful to hear from a couple of speakers on the UK. So we've got two great speakers. Firstly, Dr. Florence Lee, my Energy Systems Catapult colleague, who'll give you a quick overview of the sort of UK national level hydrogen strategy. And then we've got Dr. Amar Gaffer from the Manchester Fuel Cell Centre, I think. Sorry, have I got that right? Anyway, Amar, you'll introduce yourself when you get there. Who'll give more of a regional bottom-up perspective. Amar's been very involved in sort of Manchester, the northwest of England, developing the hydrogen ecosystem in that part of the country. So over to Florence firstly.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to give everybody an introduction of the UK hydrogen strategy and kind of the almost policy landscape that we have in the UK. So in 2021, the government published the UK hydrogen strategy, whereby the most influential thing in this was the ambitious 5 gigawatt low hydrogen production target by 2030. And this was accompanied by the 240 million net zero hydrogen fund for the development of early hydrogen production projects, which was part of the 1 billion net zero innovation portfolio. So this, as one of the accompanying elements of this, was the setting of the low carbon hydrogen standard. Now, this is quite important. The UK is actually, I think it was the first country to actually set a low carbon hydrogen standard. So this sets a benchmark. It gives a quantitative value for the amount of carbon dioxide that can be produced for hydrogen. And this is quite important as it enables the promotion of certain technologies, and it stops this kind of nuancing grey area. So although this was well received by the industry, it was clear that more policies were to follow. So this UK hydrogen strategy was updated in 2023, and these 5 gigawatt targets were had an even more ambitious uplift to 10 gigawatts of low carbon hydrogen production by 2030. The good thing about the 2023 update was that we saw the introduction of the hydrogen delivery roadmaps and the hydrogen transport and storage networks pathways. Now, this is really important because we heard in the previous roundtable that roadmaps, pathways aren't really just ideas. They are tangible, they're concrete, they're steps in the right direction. So the strategy update was very much welcomed by industry. So we also see from the strategy update, we see good wins for hydrogen in terms of 20 projects were chosen for the net zero hydrogen fund, which I will talk a little bit about later. We had a positive decision from the government on the blending of hydrogen into our national gas networks of up to 20%. So that's potential. It's not clear the extent this will take place, but it wasn't a no, so that's quite fantastic. And in terms of how were we going to achieve these 10 gigawatts of low hydrogen production? So current targets are by 2025, we want in construction or operational 1 gigawatt of electrolytic hydrogen and 1 gigawatt of CCUS enabled hydrogen. So that's really what our government focuses on at the moment. So we'll just, George, could you please show us the next slide? Yeah, that's correct. So this is when we look at the kind of shades of hydrogen, the focal areas of the UK at the moment are the green hydrogen, so electrolysis with renewables, and also blue hydrogen, which is the steam methane reformation with CCUS. So I believe most people are aware that current incumbent technology is the steam methane reformation. However, it's not with CCUS, but this is what the government strategy is the electrolysis and kind of CCUS enabled steam methane reformation. There's also in the UK growing interest for the for turquoise hydrogen, which is pyrolysis of natural gas and biomass. And also one of the organisations, Jacobs, is their pink hydrogen, so electrolysis with nuclear, is gaining some traction. So I just want to wrap up this with kind of a geographical picture of where our projects are. So could I have the next slide, please? Okay, so this picture, this map of the UK shows the net zero hydrogen fund projects that we have in the pipeline, and some of the potential projects for which won the hydrogen allocation round funding. So the hydrogen allocation round funding, the projects for that one were revealed in successful projects were revealed at the end of last year, and we have just finished the application round for the HAR2. So these are the hydrogen supported projects. So what I wanted to draw your attention to were these kind of in clusters that we're starting to see to appear. So one of them is the HyNet cluster in the northwest, which is near where Amma is based in Manchester. So I think that's quite relevant to his work. And also the East Coast cluster in Teesside. So these two regions are really centres of industry. And then we have a little cluster near Aberdeen. And there is obviously the heartland of the fossil fuel industry. But so we're seeing a lot of kind of skills skills uplifting. I'm sorry, I've reskilling. That's the word that I was thinking of in Aberdeen. So I'll just leave that there, and I'll let Anna give you a more localized picture of the work that he's doing at the moment.
Perfect, thank you. Go to the next slide, please. Perfect. So as a way of an introduction, so first of all, thank you all for sort of inviting me to sort of present here today, and it was fantastic to hear from colleagues in India, and I think Dr. Pinto specifically mentioned the Royal Academy of Engineering report. Now, I was involved, I just couldn't make the visit, but I was involved in that piece of work, and there is some fantastic work being done by the academies and the catapults, and in sort of developing sort of these partnerships. So the way our centre has been developed, so my role is I'm director of a innovation centre which is predominantly focused on supporting SMEs. So to date, since opening in 2018, we support over 150 different SMEs, who are those companies that you mentioned in the early part of this presentation, which are companies that make components, compressors, valves, who are trying to formulate new companies to sort of develop fuel cells and electrolyzers. Our core academic focus is to work on fuel cells and electrochemical devices like electrolyzers, and we work with many sort of companies. But in terms of what we're discussing today, I mean, we're hearing a lot of talk about technology, there will be need to talk about regulations, policy, deployment, but critically also the people challenge. And ultimately, this boils down to finance. So how do we make these projects financeable and how they can be invested in? So to give you a brief overview of what's kind of covered already. So the main driver, because this is not new technology we're talking about. So the evolution of hydrogen globally, given there's 50 plus roadmaps that exist now, has predominantly been driven by ambitions towards decarbonisation and net zero. So I think Florence really mentioned the UK ambitions. So the main drivers for the UK were the UK hydrogen strategy and the energy security strategy, which effectively commit the UK to deliver 10 gigawatts by 2030. Now, my immediate challenge, being a pessimist, is if I take the gigawatts that would need to be delivered in the 50 plus roadmaps, then there is absolute need for international collaboration because there is not enough companies involved in the supply chain to deliver those targets by the next 6 years, never mind as we lead out to 2050. And most strategies are built in a very similar fashion. They have essentially a number of different pillars. The UK has 5 key pillars, which you can find your role within each strategy, which effectively will help you construct projects. So what is hydrogen's role in meeting net zero? What are the opportunities for businesses? And critically, how can we support R&D and innovation in producing lots more hydrogen, which is either low carbon or green? Because our biggest challenge is that, the supply challenge. As a planet, we use 100 million metric tons of hydrogen, but it's all produced from fossil fuels. So the evolution of green hydrogen is going to take a while, but we need to start now, or we need to have started a long time ago. But alongside that, we need to build supply chains, create jobs, attract investment. And if you take the International Energy Agency's view, then what we're talking about is lots and lots of local projects for local consumption. So that is 75% of all hydrogen projects potentially will be used and consumed locally. 25% have the ability to be exported. And then if you go to the next slide, this is a fantastic piece of work, which is effectively, the Energy Systems Catapult are a core partner in this piece of work. And I would implore everyone to take a look at this roadmap, because what this does is it takes the views and ambitions of a strategy and then turns it into what the investment opportunity looks like and builds it out to 2050. So by 2050, what we're talking about across the core areas of production, distribution and consumption, we're talking about an $8 trillion market. Now, the technology element of that alone is $1 trillion. And the UK has a potential opportunity to capture a proportion of that market, as does India. But we need to start right now, or we need started a number of years ago. So the opportunity is really focused on how do we produce lots more hydrogen, which is sustainable, because we've got an immediate market for it, which is to replace that 100 million metric tons that we're already consuming as a planet. And then how we effectively move it around. I mean, we have gas networks in the UK, but they are predominantly being used by gas. So we need to put things in the ground and start building out the infrastructure. That needs to happen globally. So one of the other pieces of work that I was involved in was a project through the Connected Places Catapult, which was aligned to the Hydrogen Valley ambitions. These are brilliant ambitions, but they need to be realised We need to stop talking about strategies and policies and start putting things in the ground. So if you go to the next slide, I think, you know, colleagues from India mentioned this really well, and that, you know, it can take up to 15 years to take technology through technology readiness levels. But again, we're not working on new technology. The first fuel cell was invented in the 1800s. So all of these improvements have been made over a number of years, and there is a lot of fantastic companies already in the supply chain. We just need more of them. So yes, we're in the research phase, and a lot of our academic research is spent on reducing the platinum content within fuel cells or the iridium content within electrolyzers. And you know, iridium is 10 times more expensive than platinum. So whichever technology we look at for electrochemical hydrogen technology, it has expensive core materials. So what we're doing is trying to replace those materials with an alternative, and then taking them through the discovery, development, and deployment phase. And then I think I would just reiterate that point I made earlier, that please do look at that Hydrogen Innovation Initiative report, which the Energy Systems Catapult is a real co-partner in, because it really is a fantastic piece of work. And there's a lot of consultations that have taken place with global corporations on how we can recognize the importance of that roadmap in line with strategy ambitions globally. So we go to the next slide. So specifically, I wanted to sort of showcase, again, with a national plan, you need to filter that down and break that down into sort of regions like Greater Manchester. Now, Greater Manchester is a region of about 2.8 million people. We have an ambitious target to get to net zero by 2038, and we know that's a challenge already, because that's probably one of the most ambitious targets in the UK. But we also know how much that's going to cost. So somewhere in the region of about £64 billion it's going to get in terms of cost to get to net zero. So we need to adopt a whole systems approach. So what we did is we took the ambitions of the country and set up a public-private partnership with multiple stakeholders involved. So it's the universities, FE colleges, the airport, the combined authority with their plans. And then one of the first things we constructed was an innovation center, which supports that supply chain of 150 different businesses, but it does a lot more, because it really is an asset for the city region. So we work on education projects. So the project that you see next to the image of the Innovation Centre is a program called High Schools. So if you go to hyschools.com, it's a set of resources that is completely free. It's available online, and it allows you to teach children of the ages of 13 through to 18 about hydrogen as an economy. So it teaches about application, storage, fuel cells, and a number of different alternatives. And we partnered with multiple international partners in that project. And Florence, you mentioned the HAR1 approved projects. One of the largest consented green hydrogen schemes in the UK is now in Manchester. So construction has already started on that project, or it will start later this year, with hydrogen delivered to off-takers from early 2026. But the idea of that project, from concept through to getting it approved under HAR1 and then getting the investment required, was a partnership. So it was a partnership between the gas network operator, Carlton Power, who own and operate the site, Electricity Northwest, who are the electrical grid connector, the combined authority of the university, and the local council where that will sit. It's the largest consented because it's 200 megawatt capacity. Phase 1 will be effectively 20 megawatts delivered to a number of different off-takers, but the primary driver for that project is industry, and that's what makes projects investable, with then a potential secondary offtake for freight transport. And then in line with that,
Amma, we're running slightly late, so I know you've got quite a number of slides. We probably ought to wrap up in a couple of minutes.
No problem.
Yeah, great.
Okay,
thank you.
I'm just going to sort of point out that, in line with the national strategy, we wrote a local one, which produced that vision. That vision is now attracting companies from all over the world to Greater Manchester to deploy their technology. And an example of that is a recent relationship we've developed with Panasonic, who have got a fantastic RE100 fuel cell unit that we're deploying in NHS environments, the university campus environments, and equally they are investing in R&D. So if you go to the next slide, and I can fast track these. This is a new example of an innovation project that we're leading. We have 4 large industrial partners. This is purely about research and development to get us to the technology readiness level we need to deploy this technology at scale. And then if you go to the next slide, which is one I really wanted to finish on, is none of this works without the people, because we're talking about, you know, technology, we're talking about building our infrastructure. Who's going to deliver it? If we take the concept that 95% of all these projects globally are all in planning or about to come out of planning, as soon as that happens, the universities, the FE colleges, the schools, all and industry all need to come together to develop not just skills for hydrogen, but skills for net zero alongside. So the hydrogen specific ones, if you go to the next slide, we'll probably, and we can leave it at that. You take the level of skills required just for fuel cells and gas pipelines and financial experts required to deliver this economy, it shows you the scale of challenge. And then if you just fast track to the last slide, I can finish on that. That one. Sorry, the one before. Just one before? Yeah, that. I think collaboration is absolutely key to solving the puzzle, because this whole thing is a puzzle. And at the core of it is investment, because none of this works without investment. And the challenge is, how do you bring all of the elements of that puzzle together? So I hope that's been useful, and apologies, it probably took a little bit longer than I should have, but yeah, thank you.
No, that's fantastic, Amar. Thanks very much. So that gives you a flavour of what's happening in the UK, both from the national and the local level. But I'm going to hand over now to Abhijit Pandey, who's going to moderate a session on the Indian industry perspective.
Thank you, George. Welcome, everyone. So I think India has set an ambitious target to produce 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen in the country. But beyond all the other ecosystem enablers, we will need industry to step up and support the commercialization of the technology for the country. Now, this particular session, we envisage to learn from the industry and policy experts on what it takes to scale the green hydrogen production in India, and how can collaborative partnership between countries like India and UK be leveraged for this very purpose. So on that note, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Ms. Sylvie Kurian. She heads the energy sector for the UK government's Department of Business and Trade team in India, comes from a knowledge consulting practice and specializes in stakeholder relationship management. She's a specialist in trade and investment domain and currently drives and leads the strategic priorities of Energy's team that works in India with focus in clean renewable energy sector. Over to you, Mrs. Sylvie.
Sure, thanks a lot. Good morning and good afternoon to all the participants. So my name is Sylvie Kurian and I head up the energy trade team. So part of the UK government's Department for Business and Trade. So what we do under the DBT wing is basically to support UK companies with their trade and business opportunities. And I'm based in India, so we look at supporting UK companies in India. And within the energy remit, we have transitioned from the traditional oil and gas sector, and we are looking at supporting UK companies in the clean and renewable energy space. And so offshore wind, green hydrogen, EV charging infra, energy storage are some of the areas that we are looking to support UK companies with more opportunities here in India. I am based out of the Delhi office, but have a team, and we kind of have presence across regions, I mean, with some open vacancies. And so within the team, we try to cover the length and breadth of the nation as much as possible. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So our eminent speakers have already spoken about the UK's inherent strength and capabilities in the hydrogen space. UK has a strong hydrogen foundation, and be it in terms of a supportive hydrogen policy that we have, one such example is the contracts for differences mechanism that we have in place, or be it the overall mix in terms of 20% coming of our primary energy coming from low carbon sources, the worldwide reputation that the UK has in terms of acting as a center of excellence, and also the strong hydrogen research base that we have. We see that green hydrogen could potentially is definitely definite potential for us to intervene in, and therefore we have chosen this sector as one of the potential areas that we focus for India. Moving on to the next slide, not a technical expert. Dr. Arvind and Dr. Deepak have already spoken about some of the mechanisms, but yes, we focus on the National Green Hydrogen Mission, which was announced in 2023 by the government last year, an ambitious outlay which is spread across, different categories, which we have already spoken about, the strategic interventions for green hydrogen transition, then work on the pilot projects, the performance, the production linked incentive schemes that fall under the side scheme. So all of these are measures that have been taken by the government of India to promote green hydrogen in the country. And in terms of the capacities and the targets, government has set an ambitious target of 5 million metric tons of annual production by 2030. Electrolyzer installations, around 125 gigawatt of renewable energy production, and also decarbonization target of 50 million metric tons. And with all of this, and with the right kind of support from the government, and also the renewable energy availability, I would say quite economical as compared to most nations. We see that green hydrogen has immense potential, and it could actually help India to make a quantum leap to the energy independence targets that it has for 2047, which is in line with the Atmanirbhar or self-reliant mission that India has put forward. Moving on to the next slide, this bit would be more to talk about how we can support UK companies who are looking for opportunities in India. So as part of GBT, like I mentioned, we look at supporting UK companies with their trade and business opportunities. Yeah, so it's in terms of accessing the opportunities overseas. So with us being stationed here in India, we have access to the right information, and also connected to the right set of stakeholders who we can help you connect with for exploring further business opportunities. Our team also organizes events, and also and several activities, and also through our network. We give that those platforms to UK companies, of course, with interest in India, who are looking for opportunities. We offer them the platforms to explore in the Indian market and to make those right connections. Although this slide focuses more on UK companies, but at the same time, we also organize inward trade missions to the UK, which is delegates from India to the UK to showcase to them about the opportunities, and then look for and explore more collaboration opportunities between the UK and India. Moving on to the next slide, I'll quickly take you through some of the key events that we organized last year. So one was the hydrogen delegation of UK companies that we brought to India in December last year, which comprised of 8 UK companies. We covered 3 cities, and we met some of the leading stakeholders, industry and government both. And because we are part of the British High Commission network, and we are part of the government, UK government, we do engage with the government government in India as well. So from MNRE to Xynteo to Renew Avada. Yes.
We are running a little bit late. If you could wrap it up in the next minute or so, that'd be great.
Definitely. So that, and then of course, we also have partnered with the relevant other seminars and events that have been organized, securing, say, speaker slots to talk more about UK technology. There is a lack of time, but please feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions. And this is what the team structure looks like as of now. But there is, do get in touch with us if you have any questions or queries on either related to the Indian market, or how you think we can support you further with your trade and business opportunities in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sylvie, for those insights. Now, moving on, I would like to invite Mr. Rahul Sahai, CEO for Kirloskar Oil Engines, to provide the audience with an industry perspective on the opportunities and challenges in the green hydrogen space, highlighting some of the marquee initiatives that are being undertaken for the scale-up of the technology and provide his insights to the collaboration opportunity that he foresees between UK and India in the green hydrogen technology. Over to you, Mr. Sahib.
Hey, thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. I am joined by a few colleagues. I'd like to introduce Akhil, who heads our strategy team, and a few other colleagues who have joined in with me. So first of all, thank you so much to the organizers for organizing this. Hydrogen is an extremely important aspect, and at this moment, it seems one of the biggest opportunities for us as we transition from conventional fuels to hopefully more sustainable fuel sources. So I represent an organization called Kirloskar Oil Engines. We make roughly about 100,000 internal combustion engines a year, and mostly for power generation and off-highway applications. I have worked with other companies in the past, generally familiar with this space. In 2013, I was actually working with an oil refinery, and then we were trying to create a market for hydrogen. And of course, then it was grey hydrogen that I was trying to create a market for. At that time, that market didn't exist. Today, all of us are talking about hydrogen. So it's interesting how cycle just goes around and how technology evolves. So if you could just move to the next slide. Yeah. So at least from our lens, if we have to solve for the energy problem, and hydrogen is a key element there, but if you truly have to solve the energy problem, there are 4 different aspects to it. And each of these aspects have to be solved for independently before we can come to a point where we say that, look, this is the clear roadmap ahead. The first problem, or the first facet of this, is the molecule. Which feedstock? I mean, whether it's hydrogen as a feedstock, whether it is natural gas, whether it is diesel, ethanol, methanol, and there's so many fuel types available today. So really narrowing down on which are the potential feedstocks that we should be focusing on. The next bit is looking at the electron. So you have a feedstock, but how do you generate electricity from that? Are you going to look at internal combustion, which is where bulk of the, I would say, ecosystem is currently at, and moving from that ecosystem is extremely expensive. So it's easy to say that we look at, some sort of fuel cell or whatever the case may be, but moving from the internal combustion ecosystem is extremely, extremely expensive. There's a full-fledged industry, and there are MSMEs who have ancillaries attached to this industry today, and it's not just in India; it's also globally. So the solution has to take into account of that ecosystem as well. So which is why moving away from combustion is a little more difficult than what we otherwise believe. The third facet is what I like to call energy vectors, but largely around how would you store that? So are you looking at different kind of battery technologies or looking at hydrogen as an energy vector? So those are things that need to be solved for as well. And of course, the final facet is around financing, because ultimately the technology has to be able to stand up on its own feet. But until such time, what kind of financing is available? Are you looking at blended financing options? Are you looking at bridge finance in the interim? And what kind of instruments are the governments or I would say quasi-governmental organizations making available? So there are 4 main problems that need to be solved, and each of these facets will have to be solved for independently. If you can just move to the next slide. So now India has made significant strides when it has come to renewable energy, and there's a lot of plan that still remains to be executed, but there is a lot of momentum as far as renewable energy is concerned, both in terms of the government policy making, as well as what, from an industry standpoint, we see happening on the ground. From our end, we see here a lot of conversations around electrolyzers. There are a lot of initiatives happening. Around hydrogen internal combustion. In fact, as we speak, so we have patents on hydrogen-based internal combustion for power generation application already filed. We have the patent. We're also looking at bridge fuels, because what we have seen in the past is, even if 100% ethanol is available, there is an infrastructure on which the fuel piggybacks on. And for a solution to be practical, if you look at the past, what's happened is that infrastructure created for petrol or diesel has been leveraged, and 10% or 20% ethanol blending has been used in India, at least. Now, in our case, we believe that something very similar will likely happen for hydrogen as well. In India, the government is focused on creating infrastructure for natural gas, and 10 to 20% blending over a period of time is something that we see realistically happening. And of course, on-site hydrogen generation through electrolysis is something that will happen. But for mainstream adoption to happen, I think the blending is going to start before full stream 100% hydrogen to get adopted. So if you can just move to the next slide. Now, hydrogen is interesting because hydrogen can be used both as a feedstock as well as an energy carrier. Now, a lot has been spoken about the government policy making and some of the initiatives that the government is taking. But what I would say is that hydrogen is extremely interesting. There are challenges around embrittlement of the metallurgy that hydrogen causes, as well as the specific gravity of hydrogen, which is why it makes it slightly trickier to handle for transportation. But I don't think those challenges can't be solved for. So over a period of time, hydrogen is an interesting, I would say, molecule for us to consider strongly. And with that, what I will request for is maybe Akhil, if you can take us through some of the key highlights.
Yeah, so basically, if you actually go to see, we are seeing, and the previous slide just spoke about how much renewable energy is picking up, not only in India, but across the world. But the biggest challenge that we see with renewable energy is that it is not, there isn't any consistency in the energy generation. So that is where we see hydrogen becoming a very good solution to utilize the extra energy that's created and be a very complementary source to it. And we've seen technology happen, and we've seen this happen with technology in the past, like be it semiconductor technology, be it with the battery technology, where we have seen the costs for dealing with hydrogen, either at the generation side, storage, transportation, or utilization side, that the amount of investments which are happening over there, we will be seeing a large reduction in the cost of these technologies going forward as we start attaining economies of scale. So if you want to go ahead to the next slide. So like we were saying is that there are three major buckets where we will be looking at how do we utilize hydrogen going forward. So on the production side, there is obviously electrolyzers and reformers. But transportation is one of the biggest problems that will need to get solved. So how do we look at pressurized systems? How do we look at cryogenic transportation? And the more niche technologies, like maybe like solid hydrides and metal hydrides. And the last one being utilization. Here, there is a lot more work that has happened across various industries, be it combustion engines, fuel cells, and to start with, blended fuel technologies.
We can move on to the next slide.
Akhil, Rahul, I know you've got quite a few slides, but if you could wrap up in the next couple of minutes, just because of we're running out of time, we'd like just a little bit of time at the end. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. So in that case, I think we can skip a few slides. That's totally fine. Yeah, we can skip this. We can skip this. I'd just like to spend a moment on this slide. From the Indian industry standpoint, as far as hydrogen production is concerned, what you will see is that the go-to choice of technology is alkaline electrolyzers. So very often there is this debate between PEM or alkaline or whatever this there are different options coming up. If you look at the top companies in India, and they have, each of them have done significant research on what's the option that they would like to go with. I think the scale at which the hydrogen production is required and the demand that is likely to be, I think alkaline electrolyzers is the go-to choice. And I won't spend more time here, but that's an interesting observation that I had. Can we move on? It's fine. We can move on. We can. Yeah, we can move on. Yeah. So if you look at the opportunities for us, I think the hydrogen ecosystem is at an interesting point right now because it's still kicking off. The opportunity is going to be, at least in our opinion, around blending. And to create infrastructure that can consume that blended feedstock. And I think there is a lot of opportunity around technology collaborations, transfer of technologies. India offers tremendous opportunity for large scale manufacturing. So all of those opportunities will be there. We can move on. Yeah. So I just wanted to cover briefly. There are a lot of opportunities for both UK and Indian companies and academia to work together. Technology collaborations are possible. We can take on research jointly. In fact, one of the engine development that we're doing, not in hydrogen, is actually happening in the UK. So there are a lot of opportunities for us to pilot projects together, look at training programs, and also look at, it's a fuzzy world out there. And especially if you look at different feedstocks and fuels and new technologies coming up, there are opportunities where we can look at narrowing down some of that fuzziness and picking up pilots that can work for different kind of markets. So I think with that, I'll close. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, George. So I think we have like about 3 minutes left. I guess I can squeeze in one question before we do some concluding remarks. So the question we have is, I mean, the question that we are getting is, in terms of how can Indian startups or MSMEs collaborate with some of the school projects that Amar was talking about in the UK, especially with respect to, industry collaborations and also projects happening at the Manchester Metropolitan University. So maybe Amar, you can take that question.
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, in terms of like how we already work with multiple companies in India. I mean, we're a large university. We have lots of Indian students. We have about 44,000 students with us. So there's different methods to collaborate. But if you just reach out to me, we'll probably get you involved in our innovation program, which already has funding. So we can collaborate with any company from anywhere. That program runs until 25, and it will likely probably get extended. So there's an obvious answer there that you just contact me. I think you've got my contact details, and then we'll. The way we review those projects is if you share your idea with our sort of technical panel from across the academic landscape, then we look forward to sort of just kind of working up a work plan and getting on with it, really. And then there are other opportunities through obviously international science partnerships funds and other like that were already mentioned about how we could collaborate better. But there is an immediate opportunity straight away.
Great. I mean, that's good to know. I think some of our startups that are there in the fuel cell, I think would be really keen to look at that. Absolutely. I guess I think there's one question. Okay, probably I think it's something coming from the chat. Okay, so I think we have a minute left. So I would really take this opportunity to thank all the speakers, who were able to join us today. So I would like to thank the guests from the British High Commission, Mr. Landers, and we also want to thank Dr. Arvind Chandran, Dr. Deepak Yadav, who was able to join us as well. And also I'll take this opportunity to also thank Patricia, who was able to join us from the British High Commission. And also on the UK perspective, I'd like to thank Amar for joining, and also Florence for sharing the perspective on the UK side of things. And also like to thank Sylvie for sharing the insights on the how UK companies can collaborate in India, and also to Mr. Rahul Zahai for sharing his perspective on how green hydrogen could be used in a more transitioned way in the Indian industry. So I think as we conclude this insightful webinar, I think I'm heartened by the depth of dialogue that we have seen and the spirit of partnerships that has sort of permeated through our discussions today. So I think, broadly, we have discussed a lot of things on how we can get MSME startups into the green hydrogen sector, how we can leverage the existing capabilities, how to make the clean hydrogen projects more investable, how to collaborate between India and UK in critical areas such as PEM electrolyzers, fuel cells, and leveraging sort of India's manufacturing prowess. So there's a lot of interesting areas that has emerged from this webinar. And as we part ways today, let us carry forward this momentum that we have gathered through this webinar and enable new collaborations, and then let us keep this dialogue going forward and hopefully have some concrete outcomes at the end. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody, and you all have a great rest of your days.